Hey, it's BT with Tales from a Gemini, and this week's guest is digital creator for Alpine Stars, Mr. Heath, the Chief Cofran. This is a great guy. We talk racing, we talk the synergy and how the worlds between rock and roll and racing kind of coexist now, and what Alpine Stars does, and why they're on top of their game. And it's just a good podcast between two friends. I respect this guy. You're gonna respect this guy. You're gonna love this guy. And he is all what you see is not an act. This is who he is, and that's why I had him on the podcast, because I mean, what you see is what you get. Just a great guy who's passionate about the brand. He's passionate about life and passionate about what he does. So enjoy my chat with my buddy, Mr. Heath, the Chief Cochrane. 1, 2, 3. Happy New Year, sweetheart. I mean that. Hey, it's BT with Tales from a Gemini on the eve of New Year's. This is New Year's Eve, and we had some technical difficulties on the first time, so it's the second time around with my buddy Heath, the Chief Cofran, and I can't wait because you know what? I'm like, okay, we get a second time around. Great thing.
I know, right?
And this guy, listen, right now, he's going through a hell that I don't know if I can survive this. Right now, in Southern California, I can't believe they're going through. It's almost 52 degrees out there, folks.
Let me take off my scarf.
Something no one ever says during a moment of crisis. Let me take my scarf off. And once the scarf goes off.
My neck was a little cold coming in today.
No one ever said during a moment of crisis, let me take my scarf off. And that's when I knew the hell would never cease. First of all, 2 days after your birthday, ladies and gentlemen, he is a 51. He is the Mike Krzyzewski of the Alpine Stars. Look at this guy. Beautiful supermodel looks. I mean, seriously, I thought I was a good-looking guy. This guy, 50, is it 51? 51, right?
Yeah, I just turned 51 2 days ago.
51, and it's all natural. There's no, I mean, Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, Coach K, he's a fake. Look at this guy. But that's the Hawaiian in you, right?
Yeah, Hawaiian, French, Native American. Those are kind of like what's going on inside there. I'm sure a lot more, but that's from what I know is the main elements.
I didn't know you had Native American. Dude, you got a government check coming to you. You realize you were sitting on a gold mine? Hawaiian, French, and Native American?
Heath the Chief. Get it?
Bro,
Heath the Chief.
Well, you never know. I mean, I'm from Oklahoma originally, so I should be the Chief T. I should be. I should be. I'm serious. I'm from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We grew up. I'm Cherokee. I got high cheekbones, no hair in my body, and I can run for days.
Yeah.
Before I had my hip surgery. So, dude. Okay. What tribe are you? What tribe are you?
I believe it's Abenaki.
My dad told me. And where are they from?
Midwest, I believe.
Dude.
I believe.
I'm Oklahoma. We might be related in that sense.
What?
How great would that be if we were both from the same tribe? I doubt I'm Abenaki. I think I'm Cherokee. But still, me and you together, dude, that's a sitcom. 2 Native Americans together. All right, listen, you're French, Native American, Hawaiian. Wow. I mean, if you're a woman and see this guy, you go, oh my God, but stay away because he's happily married. But me, I'm single. I'm single, ready to mingle. So I'm African American, straight from the hood. Look at me. I mean, oof, I'm hooded up, right?
Amazing man. It's always tons of energy.
Yes.
Always. And one thing I've always loved about you is that BT this. You're always seeing that.
Well, you know what? Well, from afar, that's great. But if you're like somebody like Chad Reed, who I annoy, then yeah, it's a passion for what I do because I'm happy where I'm at. When I see you, I'm in the happiest place in the world. I mean, for some people, it's Disney World. For me, it's being at the races and seriously being around you. What I wanted to ask you though was, what was the plan for your life initially? Growing up in Hawaii, what was your plan in life before you got bit by the racing bug and motorcycles? What did you want to do with your life?
Yeah. Well, for once, I wasn't born in Hawaii. Let me get that straight. My mom and dad were born and raised in Hawaii, met in Hawaii, moved over here to California right before I was born. So I was born in Oakland, California.
Oh, you got some hood in you.
Raised in the Bay Area.
Oh, so, you got a little hood in you. Oakland, Oaktown?
Yeah. Oakland, yeah.
You got to have a mixtape in your past somewhere, right?
Oh, yeah. I was all about, growing up in Oakland in the 70s. Like my mom had a story of, we had a 66 Volkswagen bus. Like, I wish we still had it, but my mom had said someone going to the grocery store, like reached in and snagged her purse out of the van and like ran, and she tried catching him, and it was like this whole thing. She was like, she was so scared for me and everything, but she's like, we got to get out of Oakland. And eventually we ended up moving to Fremont, which is up in the Bay Area, then Hayward. So I grew up in the Bay Area until 91, till I got accepted to Long Beach State, moved down to LA in 91, and I've been here ever since.
Why you don't have a mixtape in your past? Okay, you were in Oaktown, so you had to know Too Short. Then you went to Long Beach. It had to be Snoop Dogg. So did you run into any rappers at all back in those days?
No, I was all about skateboarding. Like skating was my thing. So I was all about, the 80s skate rock. Back in the day, Steve Caballero had a band called Faction, who I'm a friend with now, and who also rides motorcycles, super passionate motorcycle rider. But it was all about 80s skate rock for me. It was skateboarding, it was BMX. Like that's all I did in the 80s. I didn't even ride a motorcycle for the first time until like 93, 94. I bought my first motocross bike.
What was
but
it?
To get to your initial question, that was my first introduction to motorcycles was dirt bikes. I used to go to Elsinore motocross track like every other weekend with my buddy. We would rip up the track, and I had a 2-stroke Honda for a while. I had a Kawasaki 250 2-stroke, and I was a motocross guy for a long time. And then getting into Triumph, came out with a Bonneville in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a big fan of Evel Knievel.
Yes. Who didn't?
Oh, look at this.
Oh, no, you did. Oh, yes. Yes. Wyatt, do you see that, Wyatt? If you had that as a kid, you were in. That was what the in crowd did.
I have no idea what that is.
Listen, can you please explain to my producer, Wyatt, who Evel Knievel was and what that is right there? Could you please explain?
Oh my gosh. So Evel Knievel was the original, motorcycle stuntman. I mean, the biggest one, I guess you could say. And, he's influenced, so many people. Robbie Madison talks a lot about Evel Knievel, and all these guys talk about Evel Knievel paved the way. And he did it on almost a 500-pound motorcycle with no suspension.
None.
Jumping buses and cars. And like, he hardly wore, you talk about gear, he hardly wore any gear at all. When he would crash, his boots would fly off, his gloves would fly off. Like, it was crazy. The dude had balls of titanium,
Dude,
for the things that he did.
Everybody loved Evel Knievel. I mean, honestly, you would stop what you were doing. It was Wide World of Sports, and if you knew Evel Knievel was jumping something, you stop what you were doing, like, okay, Evel Knievel's jumping, and we would watch it. Honestly, I think it went, as far as everybody in the world knowing, it went Muhammad Ali, Evel Knievel, because everybody loved. No, they did, because when he jumped those buses in London. And remember, he messed up there, and he had to fall, and he goes, let me walk. And we were like, what? And my dad was like, this dude's crazy. My dad was like, this dude's crazy. Right? And he tried to walk. And I remember that. And I mean, seriously, everybody knew and everybody loved Evel Knievel.
Yeah, so he was like the guy that I looked up to as a kid. I had all the toys. I had one of the similar toys like this. I had the wheelie cycle. Yes. I had everything.
Yes.
So when Triumph came out with the Bonneville in 2001, like the classic modernized Bonneville, I was like, now that is a cool bike. And then I was doing my research. I'm like, wait a minute, Evel Knievel jumped Caesars on a Triumph. And I'm like, okay, if there's a bike that I'm going to buy, like, it's going to be this bike. And so I waited a couple years just to kind of see how the bike was. And everyone was like, dude, this bike is amazing. Then they came up with an all black Triumph Bonneville. And I was like, that's the one for me. All black, I'm in. I went down to the dealership and bought my first bike. And I still have that bike to this day, 120,000 miles later, doing some road trips to Mexico, to Canada, like 18 different states. I've ridden that bike everywhere. Flat track raced it, motocross raced it, hooligan flat track, road race style track day. And dude, I've done everything on that bike, and I still have it. And that's what kind of paralleled me into racing. I was testing an exhaust at the time for this company I was working with, and I was going through some of the canyon roads, and I knew the exhaust was a little bit low.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's not low enough where I think I'm going to scrape it really bad. But I told him I think it's a little low. So I'm coming through some twisties up near Yosemite, coming home from San Diego, Sacramento, where my parents live. Mm-hmm. And I was coming down some windy roads by myself, and there's this left-hand turn that I took, and it was cambered. So it was more cambered. So I didn't lean, I leaned over what I felt was normal. And then the exhaust scraped the ground. It lifted up the rear tire. I slid out and I fell down the cliff about 30, 50 feet on my back, slid down the back. Meanwhile, I look up at the top and my bike is like balancing at the top. And I'm like, holy shit. But I was fine. I was cool. I started climbing back up the mountain and I see my bike there. I'm like, please just stay there. Please just stay there. And then this lady pops her head over the side and she's like, ah! And I'm like, what? She's like, I thought I was going to see a dead body. I'm like, will you help me? And so she like reached out her hand and helped me get back up. And I got back on the bike and the bike was relatively okay. The shifter was broken, but I could still shift it with my foot, just a little lever. Ended up making it all the way home. And when I got home, my friend was like, hey, we're going to this concert at Alex's Bar in Long Beach. You should meet us there, dude. I heard about the crash. You know, come and have a drink with us. And like, hey, you're cool. You're fine. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I rode down to the bar. And as soon as I get to the bar, there's this white limousine out front, like an old school limousine with the Foo Fighters logo on the door. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've seen that before. There's a song called White Limo by Foo Fighters. And I'm like, that was in the video. And I was like, no way. So I go inside and one of my friends who's there, who's friends with Dave Grohl, and Dave Grohl was there. And I'm like, no shit. And I've met Dave Grohl a few times, was in the studio with him, with Lemmy, recording a song, which is a whole other story. So I knew Dave. So Dave came outside to smoke a cigarette and he's checking out my bike because it was all Evel Knieveled out. It's red, white, and blue, custom paint, glows in the dark. Like it's this incredible paint job if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And so Dave was like, why is your bike all dirty? Like, what's going on with your bike? I'm like, oh, I crashed. He was like, oh, well, I see now your pants are all shredded up. And he's like, what were you doing? And I'm like, oh, I was kind of testing this exhaust and coming home. And he's like, well, why didn't you just do that on a track or somewhere private? And I was like, that's a good idea. And I did my first track day because of that.
Dave Grohl
and that
was
kind
the
of got me
reason.
into racing. That kind of got me into racing, you know, doing my first track day.
So Dave Grohl is the reason that you did your first track day.
Yeah, he really is. He was the one that kind of talked about, kind of gave me the idea when I wasn't really thinking about it. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I would like to try a track day. And then the club that I was there with, BA Moto, they built a race bike for me out of crashed bikes. And we had this Frankenstein race bike that we ended up winning the Pacific Coast Championship in Arma in 2013. I won like 4 races in a row, Willow Springs and Sonoma and all these races. And I had a blast. I had a blast racing for a few years. And it was the best time of my life.
Why didn't you get like them to sponsor you? Foo Fighter Racing? How cool would that have been? Seriously, the Foo Fighter Racing team? Oh my God, have Dave Grohl come down every night and do a concert? Dude, that would be amazing. That would have been awesome. I mean, yeah. They got endless money, and you know it didn't cost that much money to race back then. Dude, you should have. That was the opportunity right there. You should have done it.
No, not at all. Like Dave was just always, you know, a buddy that we would see from time to time, and it was always. I mean, he's one of the most humble people, one of the nicest people.
He seems like it. He seems
super
like
cool guy. Super cool guy.
Tell me about when it was him and Lemmy, because I want to hear the him and Lemmy story.
This is a great story. Nothing motorcycle related, but I mean a good story nonetheless. So I was in a band for about 12 years. I was a singer for a band called Mind Driver, and the manager of our band was also the manager of Motorhead. And so Motorhead, giant metal band,
yes.
Completely different genres of music from what we played to what he played. But our manager knew a lot of people and was really connected. And obviously that's why we went with him. So he called me up when I was an engineer at the time when this was happening. And he called me up at work and he's like, hey, do you have one of your demo, do you say demo tape, but do you have one of your demos? And I was like, yeah, I have one of my demos.
Yes, I remember those days.
He's like, could you bring it to this address? And I'm like, sure, I'll bring it after work. He's like, cool, what time is that? Blah, 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 whatever. Are you by yourself? I'm like, yeah, I'm by myself. I'm like, why? He's like, I just wanted to check, you know, so come down to this address. So I go to the address and I pull up to the address and there's like nothing. There's no sign. There's no indication of what it is. And I'm like, so like push the doorbell. Someone's like, hello. I'm like, I'm here to see Todd Singerman, our manager. He's like, one moment. and the door buzzes in. And I was like, oh, no way. So I walk in the door and there's gold records everywhere. And I was like, oh, recording studio, sweet. So I'm like, hey, I'm here to see Todd Singerman. And they're setting up, the recording studio. And they're like, oh, he's upstairs. And so I go upstairs and knock on the door, and Dave Grohl answers the door. And I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm here to see Todd. And my manager is in the back. He's like, hey, back here. And I'm like, no shit. So I just played it cool, Yeah. I'm like, hey, what's up, Dave? And Lemmy was in there. I've known Lemmy forever because of our management. And so I'm like, hey, what's up, Lemmy? And I go back to my manager and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? He's like, Dave is recording with Lemmy and I wanted you to meet Dave and I wanted him to have one of your demo CDs. So I wanted you to come and meet him. And I'm like, no shit. So I ended up hanging out the whole night with them. Dave let me stay for the whole recording studio. So I ended up getting to watch them record the song, and I have this Foo Fighters tattoo on my finger.
Oh, that is so rock and roll.
Kind of through the stories of that led to this. So people always ask, why do you have a Foo Fighters tattoo on your finger? I'm like, it kind of is in connection with that.
Dude,
so
there you go. Cool. That's the gold.
Pretty
That's
cool.
the gold right there. See, I know, you know what? You do have that lead singer kind of vibe to you. I mean, no, seriously. Because when if you guys ever get a chance to go to MotoGP or any race or whatever, the A1 or whatever, a motocross race, supercross race, you got to see this guy, and he operates like a lead singer. Like, he makes things go, but in a cool ass way. And now it makes sense because you're a lead singer.
Yeah, now that you say that, I guess it does kind of make sense for what I'm doing here at Alpine Stars. I'm one of our speakers for all of our events, and I get a chance to inspire and educate all of our dealers and people that are interested in what Alpine Stars is up to. And being a passionate writer, and having the ability to speak in public, thousands of people, I don't care. It's all about, you're always representing.
Always.
But that passion comes through. And I've heard it many times before at a company party we just had. I got the opportunity to speak to the company about what we're doing. And I'm just so passionate about this brand, what we do, what we're here to do, what our goals are as a brand. And they love getting a chance to tell that to people and to tell people why they should care about who we are as a brand. Almost 60 years, BT, of Alpine Stars, and we're coming up on that. So all the innovations that Alpine Stars is doing, I'm blessed to be at the forefront of communication on that. And the whole connection to the lead singer thing, I guess it totally makes sense, because you're a lead singer of a band, you're projecting, these songs and these visions and words you want to tell kids about at the time, and you're doing kind of the same thing with motorsports and with people that ride or drive. So I mean, it's been a great path that brought me to here, and I'm just super happy and super lucky and fortunate that I've had this opportunity.
Well, dude, I mean, honestly, think what you just said now and what I just said, it makes it A stars, okay? Racing and rock and roll. I mean, no, they're synonymous if you think about it. Because, okay, in rock and roll, you love the stars. I mean, look, we both love rock and roll. We just love music, period, right? And you love the stars, okay? Like, the front guys of the band, the lead singer, the guitar players, right? They're the stars. And then when it comes to racing, if you know racing, if you're the geeks like we are when it comes to racing, and Mark Marquez walks in like, oh, they're rock stars. In that community, they're the rock stars. So A star, it makes sense, because if you're A, that means you're primo. That means you're number one. And a star, it makes sense. A stars. And then if anybody has ever seen the promo video for A stars, my God, I was in the tent when I first saw that, and I was like blown away, like, yeah, they're right. I mean, it made me want to get something right then and there, and it makes sense. It's so simple. Why don't you guys come out with a rock and roll line? I mean, seriously, you think I'm joking, but come out with a rock and roll line, the A Stars rock and roll line. I mean, dude, because that's what it is.
There are some, within the Oscar line, rock and roll has a certain style and a certain fashion to it, right? Especially traditional rock and roll, and some of our stuff pays tribute to the classic, realms of motorcycling. There's the Oscar line has that kind of 60s drawback to that style, but it's always about progression. But, the rock star mentality of, that kind of style, we'll always encapsulate that, because, that's where we came from the early 60s, 1963. is when the company started. So, there's some stuff that kind of have some throwback, to that, rock and roll kind of style as you're talking about.
For some reason,
Sure.
right now, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, what I'm visioning in my brain. For some reason, I'm thinking of Ian Astbury from the Cult playing Sanctuary, riding with the leather and the shingling things, right? and with the bandana playing Sanctuary,
Yeah.
and that has A Stars written all over it. You guys should go to him and back a truckload of money up to his house and go, listen, would you shoot this promo commercial for it with your song Sanctuary, and come out with the Ian Astbury A Stars lineup? I mean, seriously, A Stars jacket, the rock and roll Ian Astbury line. Dude.
It's so funny. You're so funny.
But that is so rock and roll. That's so you. Listen, if you're riding on a motorcycle, when you hear Sanctuary, that's at least another 30 miles an hour faster than the speed limit you're going to be riding. And with the leather and the shingling things, dude, it's a no-brainer, bro.
There's a guy that we work with, we get the opportunity to work with a lot of VIPs and celebrities, musicians, actors, and one of them is Billy Idol's guitar player, Billy Morrison.
Yes.
And so he just hit me up about coming to this rock show that they're putting together, and it's great to see rock and roll guys that ride, actors that ride, and they come to us for protection that they want, and are not doing their jobs. And that's another cool part of what we get to do as a brand, is support people that are super passionate like yourself about motorsports and riding, and getting to tell that tale of Alpine Stars and why we do what we do is the best protection you could get in any form of motorsports. And when you really think about what Alpine Stars does, it would take at least 10 brands to really do what we do as one brand. Because you think F1, Dakar, Supercross, Motocross, MotoGP, World Superbike, karting, NASCAR, Dakar, you name it. Like every form of motorsports, we have athletes and teams all over the world that support those kinds of riders. And so it's great. It's just so cool to be a part of something like that.
Well, because now is the time where show business and sports, they're all synonymous now. They come together. There was a time when it was like kind of separate, but now the way the world is now, which is so beautiful, those worlds, they coexist now. And you see that crossover. On the grid, we saw Gronk on the grid. I took a picture with Orlando Bloom. You have other stars on the grid. Rock and roll stars. F1, they had Megan Thee Stallion, I guess. I don't know that, but yeah. So that's where he is now, and now's a perfect time to launch that rock and roll brand. I'm telling you, man, you guys should do it, because now is the perfect time. Because now, when you see, great thing about racing is, and I love this setup to it. Like in football or basketball, you see on the sidelines maybe, but they don't interact with the athletes the way they do in racing, because they're on the grid, where you see where a Hamilton or Marquez might be on his bike, and then an actor will come around and go, hey, Marquez, this is Gronk, he plays football. Hey, how you doing? As he's getting ready to race. And so now you got these two stars meeting for a brief second, and that star knows what this guy's about to do, so he's kind of like standoffish because he knows what he's about to do. And right now, I honestly think so. This is kind of a joke, but it's kind of truth, though. If you can come up with a line where people feel like they're a rock star and they're an athlete at the same time, I think that would cross over so much. And being in Southern California, you had the access to that.
I'll make a comparison to what you just said that's relative to what we already do. When you're talking about, being on the grid, and I was there with Orlando when Orlando wanted to meet some of the riders, and he's like, could I meet him? And I'm like, of course. So of course you can. And so he wanted to meet Marquez, and he wanted to meet, some other riders. And it was Rossi's last race, in the US. And he kind of walked over, and he was super nervous about, wanted to say something to Rossi. And Rossi's guy looked over, I forget what his name is, his buddy. And he was like, hey, that's Orlando Bloom right there. And he's like, yeah, come over. And so Orlando was like, I don't want to bother you, but, this is such an honor, thank you for everything. And then Rossi was like, of course, you got to come to the ranch and ride. And he's like, oh, yeah. And it was that one of those things where it's like you said, he had so much respect for the athletes, and they have respect for each other. But in connection with that, you think about the term influencer, right? And what that means.
Yes.
You think of yourself as a rider, and you want to ride. You love riding. You want to do motocross. You want to do track days. but there's people that you look up to, like Marquez and Fabio Quartararo, Jorge Martin, like all these guys. And even as a kid, right? You even like why I bought my bike. I want the bike that Evel rode.
Yes.
So when you go to buy gear, it's like, I want to wear the same gear that Marquez wears, or Fabio wears, or Jorge Martin wears. And so there is that kind of cross rock star-ish vibe that comes in by wanting to wear the things that the fastest riders in the world wear.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things that Alpine Stars does within the brand, is make the products that the teams and the riders, say, I have to have Alpine Stars. I have to have that airbag system or that helmet or that gear because it's going to keep me safe if I'm going to crash. And then the everyday guy like you and me commuting to work, if it can protect them, it can protect me too. So there is that kind of, it's not exactly what you're saying, the rock star line, but it's inspiring, right?
Yeah.
All of what you're talking about is inspiring people to wear something cool. But what we're trying to do is inspire people to wear the most protective gear possible. And if you can protect someone winning multiple championships and winning Dakar back to back to back to back to back, it can protect you. And that's one of the things that we relevate from most, is developing products with the fastest athletes in the world so the everyday person can enjoy those characteristics that makes it a great product. And that's how I'm connecting it into your rock star line. You want to do is the influence.
But the thing about it is, you look good doing it. Hold on, officers. Have a great 2022, officers. I mean that. Be safe. God bless you guys. But you want to look good doing it is what you want to do. I mean, and
Right.
if you're a dork like me, you want to look just like Marky. You want to look like, honestly, you want to look like Black Marky.
Fast is
That's
good.
me. I mean, you don't understand, man. When I take my bike out of the garage, and I lie to you not, I'm backing it out, and I literally think MotoGP. So I back it out like GP, and I got the center stand, and I'm serious. I start it up, and I'll take a step back, and I pretend like FP1 is starting, and I get on my bike, I slide to you not, and then I pull off, and I'll take that look back like Marquez does to make sure nobody's coming, and then I get into the street, and I'll do my stretch,
in.
and I get my stretch on the bike, and then I'm gone. But I'm talking every time. And I can't be the only adult that's that dorky doing it. So if you
For sure.
so if you come out with a line of product that look just exactly like those riders, there's got to be guys like me who will buy that because they think they're that person in their head.
Yeah, for sure. There are some things that we had, like with Ducati, we did kind of a replica jacket through the Ducati MotoGP suits. That was a limited edition thing that we had done. So there are small things that do come out in a limited edition scope that the everyday person can buy too. It's once in a while that it comes out, but when it does, I mean, it usually goes pretty quick.
Man, I'm almost hesitant to bring it up, but I think it deserves it because, and that's the relationship you had with Eddie Van Halen. I love that. I saw the picture of him in the motorcycle, and you guys rode together, and dude, iconic is an understatement, but you knew the person, and I mean, if you could just tell us a little bit about that, if you want to.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Eddie was he ended up becoming, a very, very, very good friend of mine just through both of us having a passion for riding. And one of my friends that I worked with through Alpine Stars, an editor, wrote me and said, hey, I'm doing this piece with Eddie Van Halen, a riding piece. He has this bike that we're going to do a ride together on, and I want to get him some gear. And I'm like, dude, absolutely. And so he connected me with Eddie, and I'm like, oh my God, he just gave me Eddie Van Halen's phone number. And so I called him for the first time, and he knew I was calling because of my friend, and I was talking to him, and I was like, oh my God. Inside, I'm like, oh my God. But as I'm talking, I'm just cool. Like, yeah, man, just want to make sure what size are you? What are you into? I just want to make sure you're all set. And so I ended up just getting him some gear for the shoot. And then I sent it to him, and they had an awesome ride. And then my buddy said, no, Eddie had written me back saying, hey, everything fit great. Thank you so much. And then my buddy hit me back like 2 weeks later saying, hey, I'm still in town. I'm going to go for a ride with Eddie. Do you want to come? And I'm like, absolutely. And so I had an Arch motorcycle at the time. So I was doing some work with them. And I wanted Eddie to try the Arch motorcycle. So we went and did a ride together, and I was like, man, Eddie can ride. And so we were ripping through the town, and my buddy was kind of like, wait for me, like in the back, and Eddie and I were just like, meow, kind of going through.
Yeah.
And then and it started raining a little bit towards the end of the ride, and none of us had rain gear on. And Eddie had took a picture of my friend that looked like he pissed his pants, and we were just cracking up. And I still have the photo of Eddie like pointing to his crotch. So, you know, we just became really good friends through our passion for riding. And then, you know, we didn't really talk about music. You know, there was just this connection that we had. And you know, I ended up going to his house for his birthday parties, and we would have breakfast together with his family and my son. And he was, you know, Eddie was Uncle Eddie to my son, and he would like play videos, and he would want me to send them to Eddie. And Eddie was like, oh, Charlie, you're getting it down. You got to move your foot this way, or you got to do this. And he was like, okay, Uncle Eddie. So it was like, we just ended up becoming really close through our passion for riding. And Eddie ended up buying a bike. I advised him not to get the most powerful one. He ended up getting the Monster, like $12.99 or whatever the fastest Monster was. Yeah. And I was like, Eddie, I'm like, that bike is way too fast for you. I'm like, you should have got this one. And I was like, yeah, but this was the fastest one, and I want the fastest one, because Eddie would do track days with his cars. But he never did a motorcycle track day. He was supposed to do one with me, but he was at the time, he wasn't really feeling good. So he couldn't do a track day. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you know, he ended up getting this bike, and we went for a ride, and he's like, you're absolutely right. This bike is really fast. And I'm like, just be careful, dude, because I know you're going to want to. And so I ended up going for a ride with one of his friends, and he ended up crashing. And he called me, and he's like, hey, could you come by the house? I want you to check out the bike. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Because I lived relatively close to him. Mm-hmm. And so I went to his house, and the bike was like dented and dusty. And I'm like, what? I'm like, did you crash? He's like, yeah, that's why you're here. I want you to take the bike. I'm like, well, what do you mean take the bike? Take it to get it fixed? You know what? He's like, no, I want you to have it, because I don't want to have this bike anymore. It's too fast. I'll get a slower bike, and you can just keep this one and fix it. I was like, okay. So, so I took the bike and like had it. And then he ended up getting the Scrambler, which is, you know, the bike I initially advised him to get. So he got the Cafe Racer Ducati Scrambler, which he liked. Perfect power, perfect riding position for him, because he wasn't super tall. And I ended up having the bike, Eddie's bike, and I was working on getting it fixed. Long story short, someone stole the bike out of my van as I was trying to get it fixed. And the police, weeks later, I called Eddie, and I'm like, they stole the bike. And he's like, easy come, easy go. He was like, he didn't care. He's like, whatever. He's like, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. And I said, you're absolutely right. If I wasn't meant to own that bike for whatever reason, that's what the earth is telling me. And so a couple of weeks later, knock on my door, and they look in the peephole, and there's two police officers there. At this time, I thought the bike was gone. Like, I wasn't even thinking about, oh, it's the bike. And I open the door, and the officers are like, you Heath Cofran? I'm like, yes. Like, what happened? He's like, are you the owner of a red Ducati Monster, you know, with Eddie Van Halen? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, we found the bike, and the guy is with the bike right now. He's like, did you loan this bike to someone? I'm like, no, it's stolen. And he's on his radio. He's like, nope, the bike is stolen. You can detain, you know, the guy. And so they took the guy, and they took him away. And they said, hey, the bike's here if you want to go and pick it up. And I'm like, save me on some towing and all those fees where they store it. Yeah. So I bolted down there, and the two officers were there that ended up catching the guy. And one of them had like bloody arms, and it was all messed up. One of them had like marks on his face. And I'm like, what happened to you guys? And they're like, wait a minute. First of all, we need to know, like, how is this Eddie Van Halen's bike? And I gave them the story, like, Eddie gave it to me. And they're like, no way. He's like, yeah, it was worth it. And they're like knuckles with each other. They're like, this was Eddie's bike. And so the guy ended up stealing the bike. He put a different plate on it from a Ninja 400. And that's how the cops knew, because they ran the plate. And they're like, that's not a Ninja 400. And so they followed him because they didn't want him to run, because they can't chase him. Yeah. As soon as he parked the bike, the guy bolted when he saw the cops kind of show up, and they caught him. The guy kicked him in the face. He got caught on a wall. They pulled him off the wall. So the guys were like all battered and bruised. So they were like super happy that that it really was Eddie's bike that they helped get back. And those guys were so proud, and they were super cool. And it was a story that super blessed to get that bike back. And every bike that I've had so far has been stolen and I've gotten it back. So hopefully it never happens again, but three times is a charm and I'm grateful for it, but I do not want to deal with that ever again. Getting a bike stolen just absolutely sucks.
Who's your insurance company? Because they want some questions.
State Farm. State Farm has been great.
Flo wants to talk to you. I mean,
Well, hey, I've gotten them all back. So
how do you do that? How do you boomerang that? I mean, seriously.
Oh, there's nothing anybody could do to grace yourself by getting a motorcycle back. It's the luck of, the gods of speed, whether you're going to get it back or not.
So where's the bike at now? The Monster, where's it at now?
One of my friends is working on it. And it's actually, he's taking care of it for me because he has a lot of bikes and he's helping me with the bike. He's a very close family friend of mine that is helping me get the bike, where it needs to be, because it was pretty banged up and I wanted to do some really cool Van Halen stuff to it as a tribute to Eddie. And eventually I'm not ready to ride the bike yet, but I will be. And when I am, it'll be something special.
So. Dude, I mean, honestly, yeah, man. I mean, I had to have you tell that story again. I could tell it hits you and it hits me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Eddie, man. I mean, and we said it before, we said it again. I really think the more you think about it, Van Halen might be the greatest American rock band there was, because now the influence, you almost have to go to Kiss because they found Van Halen, but the talent-wise, what Van Halen brought to the game, I don't think it was. I mean, it can't be equal. I mean, think about it. Eddie goes without saying, but we go the bass section. I mean, the rhythm section with Alex and Michael. Michael Anthony. You couldn't really beat Van. They had no weakness. The only weakness was David Lee Roth, but he was the greatest front man, but he couldn't really sing. But for a front man, you couldn't beat him. I mean, they might be the greatest American rock band there was. I mean, can you name one better than them? Right off the top of the head.
No, especially off from their time. I mean, Eddie created that sound, right? That was so inspirational and influential to so many guitar players. Wanted that Eddie sound. When Eddie would, do something, there was a sound like you didn't even have to listen for 2 seconds. Oh, that's Eddie.
Yeah.
He just had a way of playing that, was so unique and so different. And like, it was such a pleasure and honor to call him a friend. And he still is. Anytime I hear Van Halen to this day, like I get a little teared up because I'm really bummed that he left us. He left us way too early.
Yes.
And it was really tough because he was going back and forth to treatment. We were texting each other and he's like, I'm not in a good place right now. I'm not doing too hot. And I'm like, dude, just know I love you and I can't wait to ride with you again. And we're going to feel that wind on our face and that love that, that riding gives you. And he's like, we'll do it, buddy. We'll do it. And then it was just, it got worse after that. And, it was really, really sad to see him go.
Top 5 Van Halen albums. Not in order, just top 5. Not in order.
5.
Top 5. Not in order.
5150. 5150.
Okay.
1984.
Okay.
Van Halen.
Of course.
And Van Halen 2.
Okay.
But 1984, I think, was going to be my favorite.
Dude, I mean, to me, Drop Dead Legs. I mean, it still gives me the prickles on the back of my neck. That Drop Dead. I mean, I can just see myself walking to a UFC fight, playing that song, and just getting ready to. Van Halen. God, that period of time, man, was when rock and roll was rock and roll. It just had. It had rhythm, but it had the solos. And that's what I miss about nowadays is the blazing solos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Eddie had that solo, that was just, you knew it was Eddie. And I know I said that before, but there's just a tonality to what he had done. It was just so unique. And like Hot for Teacher, how that song started, like reminded me of a dragster.
Yes.
Like it was like, and I'm like, oh, it's a dragster about to start going, and that would always get me pumped up. When I used to skateboard in the 80s, like that was my song when I was going to skate vert or skate half pipe.
Mm-hmm.
I put that song on in my headphones, and I'm like, and I'd go and I'd drop in and be like, yeah. And I was just so into it, man.
Okay, top 5 Van Halen songs. Top 5 Van Halen, and don't have to be in a particular order, but top 5 Van Halen songs.
Top 5 Van Halen.
And I'm gonna say I already know Hot for Teacher's one of them.
Jump.
Okay.
Hot for Teacher. Panama.
Yes.
And 1984. How many songs is that?
4. That's 4.
That's 4. Yeah, that's good.
Dude, there's something about Ain't Talking About Love that it reminds me of a Friday night. I don't know why, but it reminds me of a Friday. Ain't Talking About Love. You really got me. And for some reason, it's the album with the twins that are the Siamese twins. Don't tell me what love can do. Hey.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just Van Halen right now, and I'm just going top of the head, but there may not be a better American rock and roll group. I mean, because every group had they were good here, but they were here. Like Aerosmith. Yeah. Aerosmith comes to mind, but I mean, after Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, it's like the rest of the group is like, huh? I mean, no offense, but like, huh? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It's a different kind of, a rock legend, you could say, where, Van Halen is just a different kind of legendary status of what they did in the world of music and how they changed rock and roll music and music videos. You look at the videos that Van Halen was doing in the 80s, like no one was doing a lot of the crazy story videos that they were doing. So, I mean, yeah, man, Van Halen will never die. And at the time, before Eddie had passed, I was trying to get a limited edition Alpine Stars Van Halen boot going.
Yeah,
Eddie was
color.
like,
with the
yeah,
like I'm telling you, dude.
Imagine if I would have done that. I wish I would have done that. Dude, like I was so close to making it happen, but we just didn't make it happen. But
I'm telling you, man.
Who knows? Maybe that's something that I can still work on with this family. We'll see.
Or a helmet, dude. A helmet like the guitar with the the design. I think that would probably be the greatest tribute ever. And the boot, a boot to match.
Yeah, dude. The Tech 10. I wanted to do a Tech 10 limited edition Van Halen boot. Like this was, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Who knows? If somebody listens to this podcast and they contact Alpine Stars, hey, I don't even want to cut. I just want recognition. Like, you know what? Because of BT and Heath, they made it happen. And I mean,
I got to talk to Wolf. about that now.
well, you're around like the biggest of the big stars, and we talk about this and we joke about this, and I always use Chad Reed as my reference, but you're around the biggest stars with the biggest stars in athletics and entertainment. Is there one person, and you met the biggest of the biggest, that one that made you go where you couldn't really fake not being a fanboy?
As far as all of that goes, there's the athletes that still, the first time I got to meet Marquez, inside I was like, oh my God. But I've felt that way meeting actors too. But there was something about meeting Marquez for the first time that was like, I felt like a fanboy, like for the first time, and getting to see them more often and more often, like, you still get that, when I go to MotoGP and we're in the paddock and, if an athlete, if our team needs help in bringing some gloves or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I'll help. Because I like finding out about these guys that you look up to and you watch them on, watching them on MotoGP is like, watching, actors in movies, right? It's kind of the same thing. You're admiring someone's talent and what they do and, kind of where they take you in the space of, entertainment. And so there's been times with different actors, where I just kind of pinch myself. They're just people, right? They're just people that have a passion for writing. And we're fortunate to work with a lot of actors that, when they're downtime, when they're not filming, like they want to ride as much as possible. Keanu Reeves is one of them. Yes. Who's, one of those guys that as soon as he's done filming, he wants to ride. He does, private track days. He'll go on rides, with just his buddies, just to go and escape and do that. But it's just cool to have that connection, and keeping someone like that safe, and a really cool story about Keanu. He, recently got his, hands and feet in the Man's Chinese Theater.
Yeah.
They put that stuff in the concrete.
Uh-huh.
And so he had messaged me saying, "Hey, did you see what happened today?" And I was like, "No, I didn't see what happened." And so I looked it up, and like I found this video of him putting his feet in the concrete, and he's wearing the ALPINESTARS boots that I gave him. And I was like, "No way." And I called him. I'm like, "Are you serious? Did you seriously wear those boots for the Man's Chinese Theater?" He's like, "Yeah, I thought you'd like that. They're my favorite boots." I was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, couldn't believe it.
Dude.
Couldn't believe it. He chose, like, out of any boot he could have chose to like solidify himself in the Hollywood, memorabilia, whatever you want to call it, in like the legendary ground where since the 20s people have been putting their hands and feet in that place. And he chose to wear his ALPINESTARS boots for that. And like they interviewed him, and I found this video of him saying, "Yeah, I wore my ALPINESTARS boots. They've kept me safe. I've had them." And I'm like, "No way." It was just so cool that, guys like of that nature, do something like that. And like he could have worn whatever boots he wanted to, and he chose to wear the ALPINESTARS one and was like, "Hey, check this out." I'm like, "No."
Man,
It was cool.
Yeah.
You just build these relationships, with people, and it's just been, a dream and a treat. And I'm just so blessed and gracious to have this opportunity to support not only the fastest athletes on the planet, right, but also some of the best actors and storytellers in our planet. And they love to ride, and them choosing ALPINESTARS to protect them, like that hits me in the heart, right? Because they want to be safe when they're not doing the day job,
right?
And they choose us, for their safety. And that's huge, man. And I don't take that light to heart. And I always want to make sure that those guys have everything they need when they want to go and have some fun, and even trying to set some things up for them to go and have some fun, whatever we can do to give them the best experience possible that, encapsulates them within the world of motorsport that they love, and just happy to be part of that.
And what have you noticed being around the best of the best athletes? Like, is there like one particular trait that they all have? I mean, like being in that intimate spot with them, you kind of maybe see stuff that we don't. You see how the hot dog is made, So what do you notice from those guys? People like Mike Marquez and being around the best, the F1 drivers. I mean, not, and maybe not naming names, but what do you notice that they do that you go,
There's just a different way of thinking that I feel a champion would have. A different way of taking situations and challenging moments. When someone like Marquez goes through this horrific crash and snaps his arm in half, basically. And what does he do to come to rise above that? He tried to ride like right after it happened. And it's like there's a mentality that these athletes have, and even the actors have, where there's just a mentality to overcome any obstacle, to be the best at what they're doing, to master a scene, or to, if it's a rainy day race, like, what can I do to be at the best of my game? I might not win every single race, but my goal is to be as consistent as possible to win a championship. So there's a championship mentality that I've seen in every athlete, that's being very smart, very thinking ahead to analyzing every situation to be at their best, no matter what the condition, no matter what pain they're going through. There's a mental capacity to a champion. And even like the best actors in the world that this not the average person has. And if there's little elements that I can pull from these guys and learn from them, I'll do everything I can to have a little bit of that in what I do, and apply that to work, and trying to inspire co-workers or distributors or dealers, anything just to show the passion and love that I have for the brand and what I feel like I'm here to do. I try and learn from these champions, just little things here and there. It's a blessing, man. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. It truly is.
Who's the last person you learned from? And what did you learn? And what did you learn?
The last person, I think it would be Marc Marquez.
What'd you learn?
In overcoming the diversity and a mental, getting past the crash, and people saying he'll never win a race again, and people saying, oh, he's done. And then on my side of things, it was getting past some struggles, you know, that I was having, going, I can get past this. I can have a championship mentality and put this challenge behind me and move forward with what I'm best at, with what I know I'm really good at, and just focusing on that, but taking what it takes for a champion to move ahead and to, yeah, he won a race again and won a race again. It's like, it's inspiring, and you want to adapt that kind of championship mentality in everyday life. And I try and do that, you know, all the time, because things will always happen, like this whole COVID thing, and everyone's dealing with that. Like, how can we rise above that and be as smart as you can be to, you know, keep yourself safe and keep yourself healthy? And so there's a championship way, I think, of dealing with everything.
Greatest MotoGP rider that's on the Alpine Stars roster now. You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one. Otherwise, we take everything from those shells right now, including your Evel Knievel. So you gotta pick the greatest MotoGP rider now, out there now.
Well, I mean, greatest MotoGP rider. What do you mean by that?
In your eyes, and just your eyes, and however way you process it, in your eyes right now on the grid, and there's a lot of talent on that grid. Matter of fact, I'm going to go on a limb and say this is the greatest grid MotoGP has ever established, and that's saying a lot. So,
and look at the brand, look at the bikes, like KTM's rising up, and Aprilia wants to be up there, but you know, there's a lot of motorcycles that are becoming faster, and riders are becoming faster.
Quit evading the answer.
Teams are growing.
Quit evading the answer. Hey, I'm a judge.
Really
answer the question, counselor. Counselor, answer the question, counselor.
That's a really tough one to say, but I would say the most successful rider that's on the grid is Marc Marquez.
Well,
most successful.
I mean, right? Who's most
but
right now?
Like for next year's championship, I mean, there are so many possibilities for Alpine Stars athletes. I mean, look at Jorge Martin, right? The rookie of the year, had a horrific crash at the beginning of the season, yet comes back, you know, like I was just talking about championship mentalities. Look at Fabio Quartararo, you know, winning the championship after, you know, the stuff that was going on with him and the ups and downs. But you look at the champions that rise to the top. Jorge Martin is going to be, you know, out there looking to do even better than he did last year. Pecco Bagnaia, you know, second.
God.
My gosh, he's
talented.
Yes. Fast rider. Marquez getting healthier and healthier. Fabio wants to win another championship. Jorge Martin wants a championship. Pecco, so close to that championship. He wants it too. Dovizioso is back on Aprilia, you know, full time. Like, the grid is going to be stacked. And so there's going to be a lot of people hungry for the championship again. And it would be great to see Marquez come back and win another one after everything that's happened to him. Yeah. But I also would love to see, you know, Jorge Martin win, Pecco win, Fabio win a second. There's so many Alpine Stars athletes. Dovi.
Yes, you know, Dovi's coming back. But I would love to see Raul Fernandez. Is he one of your guys, Raul?
Raul Fernandez, yeah.
Dude, there's something. Hey, I want there to be a series called There's Something About Raul. Because let me tell you something. Remy Gardner winning that championship, I love Remy. He deserved it. Don't get me wrong. But the whole time I was going, there's something about Raul. I mean, every time, okay, Remy did this, but you go, who's this dude? And it was something about Raul. Maybe it's the look.
What about Pedro Acosta?
Pedro Acosta goes, he goes without saying. He goes without saying.
Dude,
I mean, to me,
stomped the competition.
Dude, the mental he had for when he wasn't on to still capitalize on, like, okay, he had a bad race, but you know what? He still finished ahead of his competitor, or only one place behind. He was always on, and to be that age and what he did. But back to the question. Okay, greatest Supercross rider lined up on the grid this year.
Oh.
The best Supercross rider, not motocross. We'll get the
right, I know. I mean, look at Cooper Webb coming back from championship.
There you go again.
You know, you got
there
like
you go
Tomac.
Again. There you go
hungry
again.
For another one. You got Jason Anderson. You have so many. Oh,
there you go again. There you go again. I want one.
You can't make me pick one guy.
I can't make you one. I can't.
How many talented athletes that Alpine Stars has under this wing to pick one It's impossible.
This is like the scene in Pulp Fiction, okay? I'm Samuel L. Jackson, and you're Honey Bunny, and the other, and I want my wallet. So you better give me the answer right now, or somebody's getting shot. Hold on for a second. Happy 2022, guys. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Hope you guys have a great year. I mean that. So yeah. So back to you, buddy. I want the best Supercross rider lined up on the grid right now. One answer right now, or we're taking your Evel Knievel. Right now.
That's so difficult. Like, I would love to see Aaron Plessinger, win a championship. Aaron Plessinger's, I can't pick one, BT.
God.
I would love to see Eli win another one.
Dude, okay. World Motocross, the grid. The greatest motor on the grid now for World Motocross, for World Motocross.
For, Jeffrey Hurlings, of course.
My God. Is
Jeffrey Hurlings is a beast. Like, full healthy Jeffrey Hurlings, unstoppable.
Okay.
That's who I would want to be. If I could be any motocross rider in the world, if I could just matrix in my head to him and feel what that feels like, that's what I would love to feel that.
Describe Jeffrey Hurlings to my producer Wyatt. I'm trying to get Wyatt to be a moto dude, but if you can describe Jeffrey Hurlings to my buddy Wyatt here.
He's a rocket. He's a rocket.
He's a rocket on dirt. What he said, it makes you go like this, Wyatt. You know when those girls walk by, I go, oh my God. The way he rides, you go, I mean, seriously.
There's some videos that he puts up. Like, he does some training on 250s, and like he's just redlining the bike everywhere. No. And you're like, how is it possible to ride a motocross bike like that with that much focus and confidence and control? Like, I just can't comprehend that.
He's a
speaking
Dutch
of that,
James Stewart. He's a Dutch James Stewart is what he is. He really is.
And you've done a track walk at Supercross, right?
Not the track walk. I never done a track walk at Supercross. No.
Oh, you got to do that. Getting a chance to see the track and walk the track, to see in person what those guys ride through, it would completely change your mentality of what those guys actually do on a nightly basis out there. And the whoops are like this deep, and they're just skimming over the top of them. Or if I was gonna do it, I'd be like this.
Yeah.
I'd be rolling every single one. Like, I'm not doing that.
True story, man. I take, when I get a chance, when I take an acting class, I take a motocross class, because I'm stupid like that. I'm 53 and decided to get a motocross bike at 53 and take up motocross at 53 with no health insurance, by the way. So I'm taking a motocross class, and it's me. It's literally me, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and I'm getting smoked. I'm from the bottom of my heart.
Me too, man. That's the one thing I don't want to risk.
Yeah.
Like, too many of my friends get hurt riding motocross. I'm like, I'll stick to road racing track days any day of the week. I would do 15 regular road race track days to 1 motocross track day.
And we say that. I interviewed this young motocrosser coming up named Amari Arnold. I want you guys to sponsor this dude. This kid's going to be a superstar. He's my last podcast. His name is Amari Arnold. Look it up. This kid's going to be a star. So and I asked her, hey, you ever going to do road racing? And his mom goes, because his mom's like, she watches over him. She's just, everything to him. And she's like, nah, I think it's too dangerous. And they think road racing is too dangerous. And I think it's just funny how what we think is dangerous. Like the motocross guys think road race is too dangerous, and road racing guys think motocross is too dangerous. So I love how that is.
We did a friends and family ride day at Willow Springs, and we had Justin Barsha come out and do some road racing track day with us. And one of the first things that he said was, I can't believe the traction, that you guys have. And he had so much respect because he actually put himself, out there on the sport bike, trying to get his knee down. And he eventually did. But he was just like, he had this whole other level. It was like, I don't know how those guys do that. And then Marquez will say the same thing about those guys. Like Eli's like, I don't know how those guys ride those Supercross tracks like that. It's like there's a level of respect for each other that, they always talk about. And Chaz Davies, one of our athletes, said, every road racer wants to be a Supercross racer, and every Supercross racer wants to be a road racer. So it's funny when you actually get those guys together.
And everybody respects everybody except quad riders.
Oh.
Nobody likes quads. You know what's great? I got into it with some motocross and we were going back and forth, but it's funny. Nobody likes quad riders. I don't know what it is. There's always a hatred for quads.
Have you seen a sidecar cross
Yes.
before?
Yes, that's crazy.
So sidecar cross is something that I wish I had the capability, the pull.
Yes.
I would love to bring sidecar cross to the US. Like if I could snap my magic fingers and have them do like one season series here of like 10 races across the US. Oh my God, those guys are nuts. Absolutely nuts. If you've never seen sidecar cross, look it up.
Yes.
We have the last 2 champions, the guys that work with Alpine Stars athletes.
Of course you do.
But watch those guys, man. It is crazy what they do.
Being that this is going to be released on the eve of A1, and as we wrap up here, it's got to be the last question. On the eve of A1, as they're going to be lined up on the grid. Tell me who the winner is for A1. That's our last question. We got to go. Tell me who's going to win A1. Damn it. And I don't want a long-ass political answer.
Okay. Who I would like to see win. Okay.
Happy New Year, guys.
I'm going to say Eli.
Eli Tomac.
I would love to see Eli win
on
the opening round.
Got you, brother. Man,
I'd love to see that.
God,
it would be great.
We got to go. I appreciate you. I mean, honestly, I appreciate you braving damn near apocalyptic conditions in Los Angeles. I mean, it's damn near 54.
Yeah, I'm going to put my scarf back on now so I can go back outside.
It's damn near 54 degrees, and you
54.
did it for me. Heath, it has been a pleasure, my friend. Honestly,
it's always a pleasure, BT.
Dude,
seeing that smile on the screen is not as good as in person, but I'll take what I can get.
Dude, you represent the brand, and we both are connected through our passion and inspiring people, and you definitely do that. You're a leader. You're a better person than people even think you are. You're just awesome. You are definitely my friend, and I'm happy to know you. Thank you so much for your time for this, buddy. I appreciate that. Happy birthday.
You happy New Year to you, my friend. Happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully at a race soon.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that.
Okay. All right, BT.
Thank you so much for watching Tales from Gemini. I'm BT, and like we say about this time, you know the word. Peace.